Today on Great Chat, we're talking about what hills we would actually die on in this era of hot takes loosely held. I'm Ashley, and I'm joined by Angela and Helen. Great Chat is brought to you by Mercury, radically different banking led by over 300,000 entrepreneurs. We use Mercury to run this podcast and love recommending it to other founders and fund managers. It's free to get started. Try it for yourself. Visit mercury.com to learn more and apply online in minutes. Hey, everyone.
Hi.
Hello from Palm Springs, where Helen and I are both
at Coachella
attending a conference. Yes, we're here for Coachella. No, I retired from Coachella with the Beyonce set. So that was my last one to go out on top.
I've never been, but I think 40 is the year that I embraced Coachella. So
I feel like Katy Perry and Justin Trudeau made Coachella hip at any age. So Angela, they've paved the way specifically for you.
Katy Perry, it always comes back to her.
Didn't he tweet something really serious and then have everybody on the internet say, "Did you just tweet that from Coachella?" I think he posted something about some geopolitical issue, and it's like, did you just tweet that from Coachella?
I did think that was kind of an iconic photo, and he looked really good. He looked young. It was just it was good vibes.
I also just thought it was interesting that Coachella generated so much discussion about the music industry business model, the amount of posts I saw dissecting Justin Bieber's royalties or selling his masters. I felt like I was in business school class reading all the Twitter posts about his performance.
Or Madonna and Sabrina Carpenter being on stage together, but then there was a lot of commentary about the crowd and how they were kind of soulless and just filming and not into the music. So I feel like it's probably catnip for older people to be like, we did this differently. Young people are doing Coachella wrong.
The lineup is always so funny because there's definitely this little bit for everyone sort of model, right? And they really try to span all ages. So I actually think the Coachella crowd, maybe I'm just ignoring the younger cohorts that go there, but I think of this Coachella crowd as this aging crowd of the same people that I was going to Coachella with 20 years ago or something. But
Coachella is a fashion event, and it is a fashion event for the young, as much as it is a music event. So that's a perfectly natural transition to Tim Cook.
Of course.
Our fashion icon of Gen Z. No, but I mean, Angela, I think you were saying it feels like the end of an era, but what is the era?
Yeah, it feels like the end of an era, but I don't know what era, but it still feels like the end of one.
Well, Tim Cook really did feel like an extension of the Steve Jobs era in many ways, right? Steve Jobs, iconic leader, but he passed the baton to Tim Cook, and they were so different. It felt like this was this was Steve's plan for the company, and now there's been a lot of time, and there's a new person in the mix, and so I don't know. I wonder if that is some of the nostalgia, if we're mourning Steve Jobs all over again.
So I saw somebody break this down on the why do these, iconic founder CEOs pass the baton to people who are less aggressive, maybe are more going to be
less charismatic,
or just they're going to carry out the plan that was already set forth, right? And somebody mentioned Andy Jassy and there were a couple of other examples. I was trying to think okay, the Steve Jobs era, what will it be marked by? And it's I could think of the watch.
You mean the Tim Cook era?
Excuse me, the Tim Cook era.
You actually kind of made your point.
Yeah, so the watch, the failed VR headset, and TV shows. And I feel like TV shows are missing from the discourse here because, Apple TV really grew up and they became a production company and media property. And I think that that piece is probably more significant than we give credit to when we're just thinking about the hardware. But I think that the big thing that people are discussing right now is that how arguably Apple was poised to really win an AI era when they've got so much user data, right, on hardware devices, and sort of they're not part of the conversation or how much they missed out on, sort of what the model companies have been able to do.
I kind of agree. I was going to say, I wonder if you'll also be remembered for the things that didn't work out, like Project Titan and building their own car. There are all these initiatives.
What's Project Titan?
Well, Apple was going to build its own self-driving car, and they were going to do all these other big bets, I think, that never really took off in the way that people had expected them, for better or for worse. But I think of him simultaneously for those things that you mentioned and the things that they didn't roll into, and AI being, of course, like the biggest one.
I would just say on AI, I feel like that is still an open question. Apple is not a company that tells a story that's ahead of the products, right? They let the product launches tell the story about the future. And so, and maybe if they were out here talking about why like on-device AI is going to be the future and how the models are like Apple has the distribution. There are people who are Apple bulls, and I think this really came up during the CapEx debate when you like look at what the big players are spending versus Apple, which was historically the bigger sort of CapEx culprit, and it's been relatively stable, and so they might just be playing a very different game, and we won't get to see what that game is until later. But I think it's still an unknown, but certainly they are not a leader today in the AI wave. That is very clear. It's just a question of will they be tomorrow.
The promotion from within is also really interesting because I feel like Apple is one of, still one of the companies where like these executives are, like they're homegrown, right? And I think somebody zoomed in on his LinkedIn profile and said this is the one of two companies he's ever worked for in his entire career. And the only commentary I've really heard about him is that he's a really nice guy.
No, it's funny. It was like his LinkedIn is like 4 years as an engineer somewhere and then 24
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
at Apple. And it's like, oh, holy shit. But actually, when you think about it, that's a recipe for a lot of successful big company CEO transitions, I feel. I mean, wasn't Satya Nadella at Microsoft for quite some time, and wasn't Sundar
That's right.
at like
I was just
Google
thinking both of those.
forever, and Andy Jassy also was at Amazon for quite some. I feel like with these big companies, like that institutional knowledge is so critical that would probably be really, I mean, it might be shinier to bring in an outsider, but I wonder, it's interesting. It kind of flies in the face of maybe how we think about career transitions and mobility and promotion, but it actually does seem to be a bit of a pattern for some of these transitions that have gone well.
I think we talk about startups so often that startups really can't home grow in the same way when they haven't been around for more than like 5 years, right? So I think that that's when you see sort of the folks from the outside come in and then join for maybe another couple decades. But yes, there's so much commentary around him being a nice guy. And your comment about Justin Trudeau, see how it all ties together? It's interesting, in the face of Twitter being so aggressive and everyone needing to have hot takes and all of this, that like, yes, nice guys still can finish
first.
Yeah. I think you need reminders of that every now and then. So I don't know. That's something that I thought about because I think someone was saying like, why is the best thing anybody can say about him is just that he was a nice guy. Like I think people are almost like bracing themselves for like another Tim Cook era. But on the innovation front, I think that's where we're gonna wait and see. He's a hardware engineering background, right? So he was like head of hardware. So we'll see.
I like this. If we're entering the nice guy era, I'm here for it.
But I think we're saying we're exiting the nice guy era. That maybe that was the era of Tim Cook, was the nice guy era, and maybe that's what it's the end of.
No, but this new guy's a nice guy. And actually, this kind of brings us to another thing we were talking about, which is maybe in the wake of like the attacks on Sam Altman's home and the craziness at OpenAI, we've seen people floating this idea of like maybe Sam doesn't want to be CEO. I mean, he's already brought in Fiji as a second CEO. And people were talking about Bret Taylor, who is currently running Sierra, but was previously at Salesforce post-acquisition of Quip, worked with Helen back in the day at Meta/Facebook. And he is also someone who like consistently references as just like a really great guy. What did you guys think about the Bret Taylor sort of speculation
I think a lot of people think that that's very possible. And I think he would be great. My experience with him, we acquired Friend Feed while I was at Facebook, and then Brett became CTO as part of that. And yes, super nice guy, super tall. I think that at the time, the thing he was
I don't think
most
I knew how
famous
tall he
for,
was.
very tall. And
Huh.
he's known for like creating Google Maps, right? Like that was the big contribution he made at Google. And so, somewhat of a narrative violation is like Brett's like a big tech guy and does startups. And I think we think of like cracked engineers who dropped out of college as this new sort of like archetype of
Mm.
ideal founder. And I feel like he's got a really great balance of having, been in leadership roles at incredible large, tech companies, and then, starting something and then it getting acquired and starting something and it getting acquired. And so, I think that that's a nice reminder and a nice like sort of balance, I think. And the thing that I remember most actually about the Friend Feed acquisition and Bret Taylor is that like he attracts really incredible talent. Like I think the entire Friend Feed team was amazing, and I was actually just like stalking some of them to see like where they are today, and they're like not making a ton of noise, but they're out doing like awesome stuff. I remember there was one woman there. I was so young. And I remember asking her if she'd be a mentor, and she was like, "Okay." So Anna Yang, if you're out there, I still remember you. But like the team was like incredible, and I think that that is evergreen in terms of like great leadership, right? That you bring people along, real, and you're able to attract and retain really incredible talent. So when you look at Quip and people who stay there for a really long time, or Friend
Yeah.
Feed, staying through multiple iterations of the company, even when they're absorbed by another company. I think that that would be something really good for OpenAI.
Totally. And it is right. You sort of alluded to this, but it is very rare for someone to be both good at 0 to 1 and scale of startup building and then also be able to navigate an internal, I mean, and I'm just trying to imagine like Facebook, probably not an easy culture to figure out and scale with. Salesforce, a very different culture to figure out and scale with. And my sister worked at Slack, which was acquired by Salesforce, and she said Brett was just like universally loved. That's such a fascinating thing because he doesn't have much of an external persona. I mean, he's been doing a few more podcasts these days, and he's out there a little bit more because he's building Sierra in this time when AI is the story. But I would say his reputation speaks for him much more than he speaks for himself. So maybe we're in like the nice and like quiet guy era.
That
I
would be
love it.
insane.
I love it. You heard it here
right,
first. You heard it here
Yeah.
first.
That would be crazy.
Also very much in my feed over the past week, although hard to say how much of this is like like an insider narrative versus broader, is just seeing a bit of a narrative shift with Anthropic. I think like we've talked a lot on this pod about their advantage as the challenger brand in like the OpenAI versus Anthropic. They were the number two for so long, and that gave them a lot of flexibility and also made it easier for people to root for them. And I think part of this is just Anthropic has been so successful lately. It's growing so quickly. A lot of its investments are like compounding. People have pointed to like its focus versus OpenAI doing a lot of things and then having to clean up some of those side quests as a real advantage. And so part of this is just like it feels like sometimes if there's I think it was Aaron Zamost, former
The
comms leader
time.
at
Were you
Square,
thinking
who
about the time clock?
yes, and also he wrote a second post around like narrative gravity. It's like you can be on the rise, and then at some point the rise will no longer be the interesting story, and people will be looking for ways to sort of poke holes. And that seems to be what's happening with Anthropic right now. And it felt like the inflection point was the Mythos launch, where the narrative around that was like we have to release this privately because it's too powerful, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. And then now the sort of counter narrative to that is actually Anthropic doesn't have enough compute. And of course, OpenAI has made very much of a bet on amassing as much compute as possible. And so now people are starting to question the Anthropic narrative because they're so good at storytelling and so good at marketing. And so anyways, it's just interesting to see these things change, and they'll continue to change. And so it's like, how much should we get caught up in the fluctuations? But I think the more interesting question that I'm always asking myself is how much of this is happening organically versus how much of this is being seeded by the competition.
It's such a hard way to read news now, right? It's like, anytime I see a huge Twitter account do like a take, right? I think yesterday there was one that did a take on Anthropic, kind of similar to what you were just saying. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, he probably works at OpenAI. Like, I'm just so jaded now where it's like, I don't know what's organic whatsoever. And so I just assume everything is, pay to play.
I've seen the takes and the articles, but I'm curious if you guys feel like it's actually sticking or creating a narrative shift. It feels almost to me like Anthropic is kind of just Hubermaning its way through it, like the articles are out there, but they're not really gaining steam or changing the vibe shift as much as we saw with OpenAI earlier. And so I'm curious to see what happens from here, right? Like it's sort of like there isn't that like wholesale sense of, oh no, things are going wrong or something's really terrible here. It's like there's a take here, an article there, and they just kind of keep chugging along.
Yeah. I think, Angela, it's a good point. I definitely don't think this has been existential for Anthropic unless you believe they made fundamentally the wrong bet around compute and that they're screwed because of that, which I think is a narrative that some people are like trying to push. But to me, it actually more seems like the commentary is much more meta than that. And it's like, oh, Anthropic's a really good storyteller. Like they're just really good at marketing. And the Mythos launch, they were like too good. And, the reality is probably something a little bit more nuanced. And that's a very insider type of commentary. And it's less about the business and more about how clever the people at the business are and the architects of like of the broader Anthropic story. So I would agree with you that this does not feel like a big shift for Anthropic. And I think the second they drop their latest ARR numbers, it'll like wipe out a lot of the haters and a lot of that commentary because like the growth is the answer to everyone's narrative problems to some degree. And so far Anthropic just keeps putting up insane growth numbers.
I think my like hot take on Anthropic is that safety historically has never worked as a lasting differentiator and way to win. And I say this coming from a very weird place. Like I worked on the Audi of America account for a long time, and there were all of these like models that won like NHTSA's like top safety rating. And everyone had these ideas like, let's do these safety campaigns. It's like literally no one gives a fuck. They would rather drive a much, much more dangerous,
Really?
sexy car. Yes, cars are. It's like we had the
My
same.
mom was like, we had a Volvo because safety. Like I like always felt like that would resonate with like families, but that's kind of
Sure.
sad if it doesn't.
Sure, but I think that I would argue that this is a really huge race. Anthropic is not trying to find the families with the mom that cares about the kid. They are trying to, these are the AI races, right? And like you have to do broad appeal. And, I think OpenAI being first with ChatGPT, like I position them as like the default. And so Anthropic, as you said, is like the challenger. And it's got to be something. I don't think safe is going to be the way that they win. They're already grouped in with all of the other AI companies. Like, what does the average person think about Anthropic? Not, oh, they're the good guys, they're safe. It's they bucket them into, oh, just another AI company, tech bros, tech billionaires, like out to like take all our jobs and like ruin the world. Like, and so saying, oh no, we're actually safe within that is like you're talking to no one.
I feel like they haven't been pushing the safety thing very much. Like it hasn't been the main message for a while. But the thing that made the Mythos launch so interesting, or like non-launch so interesting, was that it wasn't a message around safety. It was a message on we are so powerful, but we're also responsible.
But that is safe. I would say that that's safe.
While people were believing that story, that gave them so much cred. It was like the sexiest thing to like not be able to launch a product because it was too powerful. Like I actually felt like that. No, people were like losing their minds over the Mythos. Like the first wave of the Mythos narrative was very like, I think it really landed because it wasn't a message around safety. It was a message around like power. And it, like, I don't know. So I guess like I thought that was a way that you could wrap safety in like in a more appealing, everyone's like, I want Mythos because I can't have it because it's too powerful. So I don't know. I feel like that's going to be Anthropic's Anthropic's like new safety platform is actually just like, you're lucky we're good guys because we could just wipe you all out.
I'm so jaded because I read that and I was like, this is very clearly like, oh yeah, my girlfriend goes to another school vibes. Like, oh, you wouldn't know her. It's just like it doesn't exist.
We have very different feeds. I think there are always waves, right? And so the first wave was like awe. The second wave was like people, poking holes in the story. And then the third wave is like everyone's sort of like probably nuance, right? Like it's a little bit of both. It's like this probably is a really powerful model and it probably is smart to like shore up, our cybersecurity defenses. And also, Anthropic may be overstating its power, and there may be some other reasons why they're not making it publicly available. But I do think one of the really interesting questions coming out of this is, like, what if we're entering an era where most people and maybe even enterprise customers don't get the most powerful models? What if the labs hold those back or give like more exclusive access? Because we are just kind of used to being able to play with the latest thing and have like the most powerful tools at our fingertips as they come out. And also all of the application layer startups that are wrappers on these models are used to having an upgrade every time you get the new latest and greatest model. And I think it'll introduce a really interesting competitive dynamic if the frontier labs start to hold back on some of their more powerful models and don't make those broadly available. So that's like a less of a sort of moral or narrative question, more of a strategic question, but it could very much change like the sort of dynamic we're all accustomed to.
Guys, remember when Anthropic was running coffee shops? Like, how long ago was that? Wasn't that just like a few months ago?
Not even that long ago. Yeah, exactly. It was not even that long ago. It was like the fall, right? It was like October. I
Oh my
remember.
gosh.
To me, in the like challenger brand discussion, it felt like Anthropic just had more space to try on different things, and in the same way they were trying to
Yeah.
figure out what business model worked for them, and then it kind of aligned, and they had that space to experiment and do things like a coffee shop and go after consumer, and then
Or their Super Bowl ad.
yeah.
Today it would be like a scare ad about mythos. We're keeping it caged. It's too powerful. You're welcome. We're saving humanity.
We thought it'd be fun to just talk about hills that we would die on.
Yeah.
Things that we consistently believe.
Backstreet Boys are greater than NSYNC, just important life
I was
debates.
thinking about
Really
I
important
was-
things.
Yeah, I saw that they were going to be at Bottle Rock day 3, and I was like, should I stick around for Backstreet Boys closing? But I feel like the Las Vegas experience is probably better, and they're extending the residency until the end of the summer, I heard.
Well, that's important news. Yeah. I feel like we're in an era of like hot takes loosely held. It's just like whatever is going to get the most engagement is the opinion people put forward. So what are the takes you will take to the grave? Like what are the hills you will die on?
I feel like a good segue from what we were just talking about is actually OpenAI and when they were experimenting with ads. And there's a lot of discourse around like ads and the
Yeah.
ecosystem. Nobody likes ads, and a hill that I will die on.
Helen, this is your hill.
A hill that I will die on is ads are the perfect business model. I cannot think of a single thing that has truly democratized technology for the masses than ads. And so to your point about holding back models, like, well, a win-win for everyone, actually a win-win-win, like users, the company, and then also, advertisers, is like having great ads on the platform. Like ads can be net positive to the user experience. They can be useful. They can be entertainment. And then they also, help create a revenue stream that enables the company to be able to provide better technology to the masses. And so the hill I will die on is that ads are the perfect business model, and we need to stop calling them creepy, because I see what Instagram ad engagement rates are. And if we thought they were creepy, we wouldn't be just like laying in bed buying shit every night. Our generation being like so anti-ads gave way to these subscription models and like the explosion of like prosumer SaaS. And now all of us are left with like 37 Substack, subscriptions and sort of like, reminiscing of a time where, oh, was it so bad that we had to watch that pre-roll before we like read a couple of really incredible pieces of journalism? Like, yeah, so that's the hill that I will always die on.
I love it.
Helen, who was leading the charge against ads? Was it media, like but like
If
with Facebook,
I mean,
because like I feel like media has suffered more than
yes.
anyone.
Yes, I honestly like maybe this is more of my personal arc, but I feel like something around 2016, Cambridge Analytica, the Trump election, like
European governments
European
have been
governments.
leading the
Great
charge.
point, great point. But I think that like we sort of
Boycott
like
France.
we wrapped it all up together and threw it out. And it was going to be a lot more nuanced than that. But there was also like the privacy mongers, right? Like it was sort of like this anti-ads thing that like we started to look at the revenues that ads were bringing in. And we're like, oh no, like Zuck is too powerful. Like he can't have, hundreds of billions of dollars of ad revenue to go do whatever he's up to. And I think people were so upset about the election. It was just like so many things getting wrapped into one. I feel like post 2016 election, people were just like, we've had it with ads. Like that's to me like the time where I think things really, really flipped.
I agree. My husband has turned all of that stuff off and like doesn't track. His Instagram feed is it's like terrible. It's like a fishing post. Like, like it's like
you're a male. You must like fishing. Yeah.
I mean, I love my feed, but then in the same breath, it's, how much would you pay to go on Instagram every day in a subscription model? Probably not that much. And it reminds me of in the old media world, like they talk about like the bundle, like the life cycle of any industry is like things are bundled and it's better. And advertising is my proxy for that. And then people are like, we only want this or that. And then they unbundle. And then you, as you said, you end up with 37 different Substacks and it's too expensive. And then you rebundle again. And so we're just like...
Or a Netflix subscription, an HBO subscription.
My other thought, this is not fully formed yet, so bear with me, is I think it's interesting to think about relative positioning because Facebook was the challenger in the ad industry to old media, what Ashley was saying. But in the AI age, I think an AI ad is just going to be, the return is going to be worse than a traditional ad, right? The cost of compute, the cost to create that ad is way more than like UGC content or, the default today. And so in the same way of, what it took to get Reels off the ground where it was cannibalizing revenue, in this AI world, Meta has to face the question of, do they want to cannibalize their existing super high margin advertising business for AI ads versus for OpenAI? Anything better than zero, which is like free, is like a win for them, right? So they're coming from different positioning. So even within ads, I wonder how that incumbent versus challenger positioning will play out for market share in the future.
I didn't mean to turn this into like a whole ads discussion, but Angela, you are so brilliant, and you made this, joke in the group chat about how like the alphabet structure enables Google to take themselves private. And because the biggest question around like SEO, the move to AEO or GEO is like, how does Google catch up when all advertisers are now asking how they can be surfaced in search results in AI chats, right? And I think the answer is like, they're going to have to go through a painful shift. But if they do that successfully, like I think that they'll win. Like genuinely, people have decades-long relationships with their Google advertising sales rep now, right? They're not going to leave them. So if Google helps, especially large Fortune 500, advertisers that are spending significant amounts of money on Google ads, if they help them through this AI transition, I think they're going to continue to win because OpenAI has to start from zero, right? Like they don't have these existing relationships. But it's the transition question, right? How will Facebook make that transition, right? Will they take a huge hit? How will Google make that transition? And I think that's just something that like we're going to have to figure out. But my guess would be in the coming year or 2 years or whatever, one of them is going to do it. They're going to sacrifice their current for the future, and the Wall Street will freak out. So that's why like this maybe Google takes itself private thing isn't actually that crazy at the end of the day, because that's one way to get around it. And then go public again. And then Goldman can underwrite that thing again for like the world's largest IPO, right?
That's the other hill we die on. Lawyers always win.
Yeah, and bankers. Yeah. Angela, what's the hill?
Angela.
My hill is the math never really maths. And especially in this online world where everyone has a 17-thread comment or takedown or analysis, people are just inherently bad at thinking about things in exponentials and thinking about things on the downside, and everything kind of converges to the mean. And so I think that's how we both miss out on how quickly things can grow and miss out on how terribly things can flame out. So I still remember when I was at TPG, we were doing this analysis, and David Bonderman, who was a co-founder of the firm, he was just like, the teams had slaved away for like days and days on like 200 pages of analysis and sensitivity tables. This was this huge deal. And he was just like, every single number on this page is going to be wrong. Like, just tell me if you want to do this deal or not. And it was both like soul crushing to be like all this work that I put in, but also really to the point of like, you want to do this deal or you don't. And the numbers will justify whatever decision you come to. So the math never really maths, and you're either in or you're out. That's the hill I will die on.
I mean, I feel like that hill is more relevant in the AI era than anything else I've heard recently, right? It's like, one, we've been using data to justify what we want to do anyways since the beginning of time. But I think, like when people use AI for a lot of their reasoning and their decisioning and all of that, it's like still like the human product, right, has still yet to be taken by AI. And I think that human thing is like desire or like bias and whatever action they want to take.
I like this too because it feels adjacent to another theme, which is like we just have to like throw out of a lot of our frameworks that mostly exist to make us feel comfortable about making decisions in ambiguity.
Yeah.
And, we were like, wait, cursor's okay, but like Claude Code is so big, and it's because we want to believe the world is zero sum because it's like a much neater bow to put around things. And so like it's like both the simplicity, but also like not simple because the answer is obvious, simple because the outcomes of any decision are actually like they're very binary. And we just sort of like wrap ourselves in all these numbers and all this analysis to feel comfortable about things where we just sort of have to embrace. Are you in or are you out? Do you believe or should you be exiting? And maybe there's some like life metaphor we can tie that to as well. Or maybe not. My big hill is like, you have to play your own game. Like the second you lose is the second you try to play someone else's or you try to mimic someone else's success. And I think this isn't just commentary on media properties. This is like as an individual right now, especially if you spend a lot of time online, whether it's Twitter or LinkedIn or Instagram, there are so many people telling you how to live your life, what to do, like how to do it. I mean, we've talked a lot about this in the context of, everyone productivity maxing and here's my open claw. And if you don't have 100 agents working around the clock, like you're not going to make it. And I just think, especially in times of change, everyone is sort of promoting their worldview because they need to believe that they're on the right track. But the reality is that nobody knows. And no one actually cares what you do. They just want to believe that they're doing the right thing. And so, figure out your game, play your own game, play it to win. I think venture is a great teacher for this. I mean, Helen, Angela, you probably feel this as well. There are infinite ways to be mediocre and brilliant at venture, but everyone will try to tell you that their strategy, their portfolio construction, their way of doing things is the way. And then when you look under the hood, there's so many different stories of success or failure. And there is no one path. There is no blueprint, especially, because people are living their lives so online. We're just bombarded every day with so many other people's opinions about how to do things. And if you want to be an online person, the only way to survive that is to just be like, that's interesting. I will take these data points and then I will figure out how I want to live my life and what I'm optimizing for. And I think that's like a crucial survival skill. Stay open, but like don't get swayed. Don't assume that someone non-account with 500,000 followers is the way, the truth, and the light. Like I think that's just a recipe for disaster. And then my silly hill is everything should be 50% less sweet. We're adding sugar to everything. It drives me crazy. Why are we putting sugar in coconut water? Coconut water is already sweet. Like every time I have a dessert, I'm like, this would be so much better if it just had a little bit less sugar.
You mean like actual, like real life, you think it should be less sweet? I thought you meant like metaphorically, like
no,
why are we
what?
Okay, got it. Got it. Got it.
No,
okay,
no,
got it.
I think we're just like dumping way too much sugar in things. And I'm like, I can't even taste this. The sugar is overwhelming. Actually, a lot of like, and maybe this is too broad a brush to paint, but like a lot of Asian desserts I like because they are way less sweet than like Western or American desserts. And I'm just like, oh, there's the flavor profile is so much better because I'm not being like, hit in the face with a bag of sugar. So anyways, that's my silly hill.
Oh, you're validating me as a mom whenever I do the boba order for my son, smashing that 0% sweet button. So thank you.
This is also very on brand for you as a non-sweet person. Like I remember you are much more of a savory person.
I'm not
She's very sweet. She's a sweetheart. Well, I mean, I think to your point about like, to put it in like investing terms, like if you're jumping onto a trend, you're probably already late. And also to put it in like sort of like warm, fuzzy, girl power terms, it's like no one can be better at being you, right, than you.
Wow.
So it's just sort of like,
we're going to clip that, Helen. We're going to clip
oh, God.
that.
No, yeah, that's not a personal brand.
With no context.
But like, I prefaced it by saying it's a warm, fuzzy, sort of girl power thing.
We're going to make it an ad, and it's just going to be that little clip, and it's.
Wait, can it be a Pinterest poster? Can it be one of those like those like inspo
like
boards?
A cat hanging onto a branch.
Yeah.
Just hang in there.
Yeah.
No one's better at being you than you.
And
that's great chat swag right there.
For great chat, people keep trying to compare us to All In, and we're like, we don't need the millions of listeners. Like, we are doing our own thing.
Oh my gosh.
We're living our truth.
That's right. With that, have a good week. See you guys later. Thank you for listening to Great Chat. Have questions for us? Make sure to submit them at anothergreatchat.com. See you in a couple weeks.